Order. It is Monday, December 16th. We're here for the purpose of the regularly scheduled meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. I'd ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you call the roll to establish a quorum.
Gutenkopf. Here. Boyder. Here. Dunn.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Polumsky. Here. Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Honquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
14 present, 0 absent.
14 present, 0 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item number 3, written receipt of communications from the public. Is there anybody in the audience at this time that has anything that they would like to submit to the City Council? If so, please approach Clerk Spencer. Seeing none, we'll move on. Agenda item number 4, public forum. This is an opportunity during our meeting where any member of the audience has an opportunity to address the City Council on any matter that they so wish. We ask that out of respect for the City Council members and other members in the audience, you keep your comments to 3 minutes. You can discuss anything you wish. You may or may not get an answer to what you pose depending on what we will be discussing this evening. Clerk Spencer, is there anybody who signed up for a public forum this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with Gilbert R. Fisher, 586 North Van Auken.
Mr. Fisher, the microphone behind you, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Gilbert Fisher, 586 North Van Auken Street in Elmhurst, Illinois. I am the taxpayer that you people keep stealing my money. For 15 years, the city of Elmhurst has been spending money and buying things and building things with the promise to cut the taxes. It hasn't come true. Every year, more and more taxes. It's disgusting. You people are like the great and all-powerful Oz from The Wizard of Oz, except that he was smoke and fire and nothing. You are the government. You can do anything you want, and you do it very well. More money, buy things, build things, tax the people more. I'm asking you to stop it. No more buying, no more building. Cut the taxes so that the people that work for the money that you're spending can keep it. My wife just got a letter today from the Social Security Department. She's getting a raise next year, $16 a month raise. She makes, on retirement, $924 a month Social Security. Unbelievable. This is ridiculous that we have a government like you that tax and tax and tax and take more money. Ladies and gentlemen, it's coming to a boil. You better change your ways. Thank you.
Next, we have Claude Pagash, 566, is that North Gladys? West Gladys. Claude, you're hurting me here.
No,
West
really.
Gladys?
Yeah, it's west. Claude Pogach, 566 West Gladys. I see on the agenda tonight that Fenzel's contract is coming up. Amazing. During the budget discussion, there wasn't any city personnel, there wasn't an alderman that could tell me what Fenzel does or has done for the last 3 years. We did find out. They answer the phone. They do it very well. This is another one of those wonder contracts. You wonder why we're paying somebody this kind of money and we can't find out what they're doing. Then we have on here, I guess, we want to take the word of somebody about a sewage grinder. Now that's nice. Unfortunately, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of the aldermen was rather proud that things that went out for bid saved the city $48,000. I guess we don't want to save money anymore. Then we have general obligation bonds, my favorite. We're buying some more. I guess that article in the Tribune, nobody knows how to read, right? Nobody knows how to read, so we're going to buy some more general obligation bonds. And then I read the paper. Do you know that in TIF 4, the city did not spend $1 of public funds? Not $1. We gave seashells to the supermarket and to Pauley. The only thing I got to ask about Pauley, which I never asked, is who carries the liability on their property in case somebody falls there? Be interesting to find out on that suit, wouldn't it? I was at the meeting Tuesday, talked about Han. 2 people, 2 outfits running for it. A lot of debate. Finally comes down to, well, whoever we pick, maybe we can have them modify. You know, one thing I've heard about owners, since I worked with a lot of them, they don't like to pay anything extra. It's the building they're going to have, and anybody that wants to change it better have deep pockets, because I've tried to get extra money for things that were missed, and the argument is mute. You bid it, that's what we're giving you, and there are no extras. But what I really fail to appreciate is we're giving them money, giving them the land for nothing. They won about $3.5 million.
Mr. Pagash, you're at your 3 minutes. I'd ask you to wrap it up.
I certainly will. And then they come back and they tell me I got to buy public parking spaces back from them. What a deal. I often wonder, do you people represent the public or do you represent the owners?
Andrea Alvarez, 182 North York.
Hi everyone, Andrea Alvarez, 182 North York from the Citizen Advocacy Center. I wanted to respond to the mayor's comments in the Elmhurst Independent on December 5th concerning my previous November 4th about a recusal policy, ethics policy. In the Independent article, the mayor stated, and I quote, "The Citizen Advocacy Center brought the issue up, but Rose's character and integrity are impeccable. I know her. She is an asset to the city and is the best person for the job. In fact, Alderman Scott Levin summed it up saying, it's the mayor's prerogative to appoint individuals to board and commissions with the advice and consent of the council. It is not the alderman's job to vet candidates, only their job to affirm the mayor's recommendation. How can you argue that she's not the best person for the job? This decision could affect property values if we don't get the right person on the job," end quote. I would like to bring your attention to the comments that I did make on November 4th. As you may recall, my comment concerned a city ethics policy, not the qualifications of Ms. Rose. To restate my comment that night, I stated, the City Council is considering the appointment of former Alderman Susan Rose to the Zoning and Planning Commission. Former Alderman Rose has a wealth of experience with a variety of issues that are facing Elmhurst, and specifically the Zoning and Planning Commission. She has participated as an alderman in open meetings and closed meetings, voted on city projects that are still pending, and will be before the Zoning and Planning Commission. For example, the Addison Street parking garage will be before the Zoning and Planning Commission, and Ms. Rose has participated as an alderman in open meetings and voted on the issue. While Ms. Rose's knowledge and experience as an alderman are exactly what makes her a strong candidate for this position, it's also that particular knowledge and experience that brings into questions of conflict. Further, I stated that standards for a recusal are necessary because it's not always easy to identify when interests may conflict with the role one plays. I outlined 5 standards that would benefit the city to adopt. Certainly with the city's commitment to character counts, you can understand my comment on November 4th was simply about the city of Elmhurst adopting a public policy concerning recusal and not Ms. Rose's qualifications. Thank you.
David Reginelli, 129 Pine.
David Reginelli, 129 Pine. I attended last week's Public Works meeting and was interested to hear the city had, at the request of one councilman, surveyed neighboring communities on stormwater retention policies and codes. And there were 15 that were asked and 13 responded. 11 of those communities had responded with the answer that they do not require new home construction to be tied into the storm sewer system, either the drains or the roof drains or the sump pumps, stormwater sump pumps. Also interesting on this was that most of the communities are building just a few houses a year. Some are 3 to 4. A handful are in the 40 to 60 range, but Elmhurst tops the list at 100 a year. And Elmhurst is, with one other community, 2 out of 13 that require the connection. Despite this, the city staff is recommending that we don't suspend the storm water connections. I do not understand the logic of that, given what's going on in this community. It makes no sense. We don't know what's happening. We've been studying this for years. There's been no action, and we're just continuing with the same policy. It makes no sense. One of the concerns the city staff raises is nuisance water. I'm not sure what they're referring to. We have catastrophic water. So I guess that's the trade-off, as I've said here maybe a couple of times before. Nuisance for many, catastrophe for some, and that's your decision and trade-off. I really wish you would reconsider that for the people in my community or my neighborhood that are devastated by it. We're outliers here, guys. We're absolute outliers. It's right here. Now, I would request that if you really want to know, you can find out, because I think permits are usually required for these connections. So you can go back and add a couple more columns to this spreadsheet if you're really interested, and have the city fill out another column that says, how many connections have you connected in the last 5 years, let's say, or 20 years? And how many homes do you have, new construction homes, in the last 20 years? And do some real math on this. And then couple that with the Burke report that says that this policy of connecting these new homes raises the discharge 31%, not the 3% that Borchert based everything on, but 31%, and tell me that's not the root of the problem. Thank you.
Carlton Rink, 114 Pine Street.
Carlton Rink, 114 Pine Street. I'm one of Dave's neighbors. And just kind of a follow-up from that, just once again, for people who don't understand this, in our community, in Pine and Avon and Willow, we get catastrophic effects from these rare storms. We get our basements totally flooded. I get 4 or 5 feet in my basement. Our neighbors get 6 or 8 feet. Our backyards are 1 to 2 feet deep up around our houses, in our garages. It's not an inch or 2 of water we're talking about here. It's actually pretty simple, and I don't even think we really need an engineering study. When it rains hard, our sewer system, the storm sewer system, works against our particular little community. in the Pine area, the water starts shooting up out of the sewers. Not going down the sewers, it comes out of the sewers. Now, water coming out of the sewers, there's two things. Water goes in the sewer and it comes out, hopefully in the right spot, but now it's not coming out in the right spot. It's coming out on our street and flooding our houses catastrophically. Now, where's the water? How's the water getting into the sewer system? It's getting into the sewer system by just basic runoff from the roads, but it's also getting in there quicker now in the last 5 to 10 years because of several policies. Direct connect downspouts, backyard drains. We don't even need a study for this. All those systems, direct connect downspouts, backyard drains, and I think even more so, the bigger sump pumps and the multiple sump pumps that the new construction houses are putting in, when it rains, they get some water seepage around their house, and these sump pumps have direct connect, which is part of the backyard drain program that I, as a taxpayer, am having to pay for because of the city's policy that they won't suspend. It's actually up for a vote tonight, maybe, to suspend this policy. There are people who have nuisance backyard flooding, whatever that means. We have catastrophic in every centimeter cubed of water that goes in the system from a backyard drain, direct connect downspout, or the new construction direct connect sump pumps that put this water in the system so quickly, it's just getting worse and worse and worse for us. My neighbors are within an inch of getting their first floors flooded. I'm still another couple feet because I have a raised ranch before my first floor floods, but the last storm, I had prepared my basement with everything up 3 feet off the ground because the previous storm went 3 feet, and then I got messed up because it went 4 feet the last time. Now the next time I go 5 feet. All these new houses and the direct connects, please consider stopping these things. The direct connects, I wouldn't only suspend the rear yard drain program, I would abolish it. I would say nobody can do it. The direct connects or the backyard drains or any direct connect sump pump. Or the alternative is to come up with a new sewer system to take the water out. I'm not against the growth. Growth is good. I actually like to look at a lot of the new houses. But let's upgrade our sewer system then. Let's put in bigger pipes to get the water out of the communities. We did not have this problem in the past. It's just getting worse. Thank you.
Last, we have Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine.
Kathleen Sullivan, 133 Pine Street. I'm Dave and Carlton's neighbor. I agree with what they shared tonight. First, I did want to step back and wish everyone a happy holidays. This is the last meeting of 2013. Some good things have happened in 2013. Some very devastating things have happened in 2013. But you have the opportunity tonight to make a difference. And the way you can make a difference is making the first action that actually does anything for stormwater in Elmhurst to stop it from rising, okay? I know that probably surprises you. You've done studies, done a lot of studies, you've made proposals to the Park District, to the school board, but so far the actions that have been taken, the Southwest Wet Weather Control Facility that you're gonna discuss tonight, that does something for the sanitary sewer system, and it actually adds water to the stormwater system to take away. So far, the net sum of what you've done to the stormwater system is not to decrease the water flow. Tonight's proposal that's on there, that you have a majority report and a minority report in front of you, is to discuss the rear yard drain program. And it doesn't even ask you to abolish it yet, because you're still studying. And studying and studying, as far as I'm concerned, but you're studying, okay? What it asks you to do is to stop the funding on a program that has no criteria currently. This program's been in effect for about 20 years, 25 years. It's a post-87 thing. In that period of time, according to the 100 a year, you've built about 2,000 homes. That's about 20% of the number of taxpayers in Elmhurst taxpaying. So that's about 20% that's added water flow to the system with its direct connects, with its rear yard drains and whatever. All we've asked, and all that's been asked by the alderman in this proposal, and there's 4 aldermen who signed this referral, and I thank them all for doing so. All that was asked is to cease the funding on a program with no criteria. And the benefit of this program, as one of the first things outlined in the report that was in front of Public Works last time, was that stops nuisance flooding. Some of the side effects of nuisance flooding include things like algae. Now, I don't know about you, algae doesn't seem to be the big scourge on Elmhurst. Catastrophic flooding does. So you can stop nuisance flooding tonight if you support the minority report, or you can work to identify to the citizens of Elmhurst that you have any intention of fixing catastrophic flooding by simply stopping a program with no criteria. Nuisance, catastrophe. Take your pick. Majority fixes catastrophe. I'd go with the majority report. Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Mayor, as far as who signed in.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. Is there anyone else at this time in the audience who did not have an opportunity to sign in for public forum this evening? If so, please raise your hand. Give me an indication. Seeing none, we'll move on. Announcements. Any announcements? Alderman Leader.
Make this announcement, I'm going to put on my fireman's hat, which I am very proud of. Our Elmhurst Fire Department, of which we are so rightly proud of, is having a blood drive. That will be at 601 South York Road, our station number 2, and it will be Saturday, December the 28th. It will be from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's under the auspices of Life Source. So to schedule your appointment, please call Life Source at 877-543-3768. That is 877-543-3768. And there is a website, www.lifesource.org, and use code 031G. Appointments are preferred. Walk-ins, of course, are welcome. And there will be a free pair of touchscreen gloves for each participating donor. As well, a free cholesterol screening, which probably I can use, as well as free blood typing. So prepare for your donation, eat well, stay hydrated, and bring ID. And as a special added attraction, there will be a ticket raffle, and the prize will be Blackhawk tickets. So I hope you all take advantage of this very fine and important event. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Leader, what were the dates again?
The date, Saturday, December 28th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Fire Station number 2, which is located at 601 South York Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My one announcement is regarding the public meetings or the public meeting, I should state, the community workshop for the North York Corridor Plan, which is tomorrow, Tuesday, December 17th, here at City Hall, here in these chambers at 7 p.m. I encourage all residents within Elmhurst to attend and provide feedback on what they envision and how they expect to reach that vision for the North York Corridor Plan. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda, agenda item number 6. At this time, is there anything on the consent agenda that any alderman wishes to have removed for further discussion? Alderman Bram.
6.7, Mr. Mayor.
6.7. Any other items that anybody else would like to have removed from the consent agenda? Alderman Gutenkopf.
6.9.
6.9. Okay. Anything else that any other alderman would like to have pulled from tonight's consent agenda? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda minus items 6.7 and item 6.9. Approval of consent agenda minus 6.7 and 6.9. A motion by Alderman Wagner, second by Alderman Bram. Clerk Spencer.
Wagner.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Pipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. That motion passes. On to first item pulled, 6.7, report of DP&Z finds all community marketing. Clerk Spencer, could you please read the recommendation?
Therefore, it is the recommendation of the Development Planning and Zoning Committee that the City Council authorize the city attorney to prepare the proper documents for the formal City Council approval of Kathy Maloney and the Finds All Community Marketing Firm to continue to provide consulting services for the City of Elmhurst for a 6-month period. Signed by Scott M. Levin, Chairman, Danny Palumski, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, Alderman, 7th Ward.
Oh, very good. I'll ask for a motion to approve the recommendation as read. Motion by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Palumski. Alderman Levin, your report.
Sometime, I believe it was in June or July, the Finds All marketing report was before this council. The majority report was to renew for 1 year, and a minority report was introduced that essentially extended the contract till the end of December to coincide with our fiscal year, and that was what was adopted. So the Finds All report does expire at the end of this month. There was a referral by, I believe it was Alderman Palumski and Alderman York, that led to some steps to look at how we're doing our communications, our marketing. That led to the hiring of a new position, and also to look at, over when that position's implemented, some other, perhaps to evaluate the need for other realignment of resources. I asked that it be put on DPZ's agenda because the contract was going to end. There wasn't a great deal of substantive discussion, except that the realization is that until that new position is brought in, until we see what particular skills that particular individual has, that we would then look at the Finds All contribution and see where it fits and if any adjustments are necessary. So it wasn't a substantive evaluation, and I'll say what I said when I wanted the majority report. We weren't going to be ready in December to make that decision, and it was going to be too early. That's my personal reasoning. The committee's reasoning was based on the fact that this new staff person's not going to be here. With that, it was decided to extend the contract by 6 months, and within that 6-month period, we hope to have the experience where we can do the substantive evaluation before we renew the contract on or before June 30th.
Alderman Gutenkopf?
I have a couple of questions. So, is it the committee's intention to wait until the new city staff person has been hired before beginning any substantive evaluation of the Finds All contract? And my second question is it the committee's intention to at that point assess what the city's needs are and send out a request for proposals to a variety of consultants and look for someone whose skill set best fits our need at that point? Or is it the committee's intention to just restructure the Finds All contract to provide different services based on what the city staff person now is filling in with?
Alderman Levin, did the committee discuss next steps?
I think that you had two questions. One is, are we going to wait? Yes, we wanted to see who that person is and what they can contribute. And I don't think we got to the decision of whether We're going to send out an RFP, whether we're going to continue to entertain a contract with Feinzoll or do something else, because it's a little bit premature at this point. The point of this report was merely to extend for 6 months.
Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have too much to add from previous discussions when we talked about all four of these during the budget cycle, all four of the positions, the consultants and the newly marketing and communication coordinator position. I do want to summarize a little bit what I did say, though, without being too repetitive. Alderman Levin's comments of the end of the fiscal year was one of the reasons why we had the contract renewal end at the end of this year. The other reason, though, was Alderman Plumsky and Alderman York's referral to do a study to determine what is needed for the city of Elmhurst in terms of roles. So in my personal opinion, the rationale for extending this 6 more months doesn't make sense to me, because the greater majority of the city council decided that the marketing communication coordinating position is a necessity, as well as the other positions, including the position that the Feinzoll Group holds to date. This is really what it comes down to, is an evaluation of, is this role needed, and is Feinzoll the appropriate company to fill that role? I don't know why we would tie in a totally different position and their qualifications in that role to determine if Feinzoll is appropriate for the role they're in today. The two are mutually exclusive. They don't go hand in hand, and they shouldn't be tied and evaluated as they do. I personally believe, and I have seen examples within committee, DP&Z committee discussions, that we should no longer just blindly extend the contract of Feinzoll, and we should either go for an RFP or decide we don't need the role altogether. I can't support this request. We're dragging this on instead of making a concrete decision if this role is needed and if this company, being Feinzoll, is appropriate for the role. All the data has been vetted. We've had this discussion in budget. We've had the discussion when we talked about the marketing communication coordinator's position. There's nothing else that's needed to make this determination. 6 months, 1 year, irrelevant in my view, but to say 6 months and relying upon a totally different position makes absolutely no sense to me. Either the recommendation should be a year or not at all. And in this case, I can't approve this referral.
Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to add that in taking a look at the positions and the roles that oversee marketing and communications, Assistant City Manager Kopp put together a chart of the responsibilities, and taking a look at what the new position will oversee, there are portions that are currently handled or have been currently handled by Feinzoll. So there already has been a shift or a planned shift for how those will move, and there's the understanding that as a person is hired and takes on this role, we'll have a better idea of how other responsibilities may be transferred over. We just can't make a decision yet. So we're leaving it to city staff to determine how those responsibilities fit, and we'll reevaluate it soon. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call a roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Palomsky.
Aye.
Bram.
No.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Honquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Goiter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Okay, 12 ayes, 2 nays.
12 ayes, 2 nays. That motion carries. On to agenda item 6.1.
9.
I'm sorry, 6.9. I'm looking right at it. An ordinance authorizing the execution of a sales tax rebate. Clerk Spencer, and ask that you read the ordinance.
Okay, we do have a description of subject matter. Would you like me to read that, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely.
Pursuant to the recommendations of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee, attached for council consideration is an ordinance granting approval and authorization to execute the sale tax rebate agreement by and between the City of Elmhurst and Ed Napleton Elmhurst Imports, Inc. The agreement rebates a portion of the sales tax revenue generated by the sale of Kia automobiles, used automobiles, and parts to assist in the offset of costs related to necessary renovations to the dealership property. The agreement has been reviewed by the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee, the city manager, and the city attorney, and the terms of the agreement meet the city's requirements and standards for sales tax rebate and incentive agreements that the city has entered into in the past.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve ordinance 083-2013 as read. Alderman York with a motion, Alderman Dunn with a second. Alderman York.
I really have no further comments. I'd entertain.
Alderman Gutenkauf, you pulled this?
I did, thank you. I did not believe at the time of the committee report that this was a sales tax rebate that was in the best financial interest of the city. I still believe that, and so I pulled it so I could vote against it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments as it relates to this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
York.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkauf.
No.
12 ayes, 2 nays.
12 ayes, 2 nays. That motion carries, that ordinance passes. That is it for pulled agenda items. On to agenda item number 7, committee reports. Committee report 7.1, a majority report. Give me a second. A majority report out of Public Works regarding the suspension of new applications for the Rear Jane program. Clerk Spencer, could you please read the recommendation?
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the city suspend any new applications for rear yard drain program until evaluation of the program is complete and appropriate modifications, if necessary, are implemented. Signed by Michael J. Bram, Diane Gutenkauf. Unsigned by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Chris Healy, Vice Chairman.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion to approve the majority report as written. A motion by Alderman Bram, second by Alderman Gutenkauf. Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the report clearly states the points. This is to suspend the City of Elmhurst receiving applications and providing any funding for this program. This is not saying that we are terminating the program at this time. This is not saying that we're doing any modifications to the program, and it is not saying that we're going to keep the program. That evaluation needs to be done. In the meantime, I think it is very important for us to suspend contributing City of Elmhurst residents' dollars to a program that we do not know for sure if it's appropriate, right, or just needs modifications. So that is pretty much the summary of this, that this is just a suspension and nothing about the program's merits or cons at this time.
Very good. Any additional comments? Alderman Deuter.
I think just a point of clarification. the way I read the report, is that it suspends new applications, so new people kind of entering the pipeline for the program. My understanding of this report is that it would actually leave funding in place, so to the extent that after a temporary suspension, criteria and policies are established, and the program gets back online, the funding is still there untouched and available to be used.
I think that's a fair assessment. Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To respond to Alderman Deuter's questions, yes, anybody who has already applied and we received the applications, they're grandfathered in from that perspective. We're not, unless something happens in the later item of the budget discussion ordinance, we are not recommending removal of any funding. We're just making the statement, or the report is asking to just suspend the program, not remove funding, just suspend it until we as a council have enough time, committee and then council, to determine if the program should stay as is, change, or be terminated.
Any other comments?
A question?
Alderman Hipscomb.
So to the committee, we're going to suspend this, but evaluate, during the suspension, because I do think that, personally, I think that there is a geographic bias to it. I'd like to see it in place, but I'd like the criteria to have a geographic element to it, because I definitely think that there are certain parts of the city that charge the stormwater much sooner than other parts. And that is, we've done this for years, and I think it's a great program, but it needs to be modified and taken in. We have lots of information on what gets charged quicker, and that should be part and parcel to a permit being granted for it, number one, and us funding it, because I think that there is a big geographical element to it.
Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Alderman Hipskin's point, we do have lots of information. In meeting with city staff today to get some clarification on both reports, I was pleased to learn that there has already been some discussion about possible criteria, eligibility, check valves, and ways in which we can improve our program and make only allow rear yard drains where appropriate, and be able to say when they're inappropriate. Thanks.
Alderman Gudenkauf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all the other aldermen's comments about the program. I don't think the intent of this report is to discuss the merits of the program. All this report does is give us some breathing space to allow the committee to further its discussion without adding additional residents into the potential funding pipeline. Pardon me. And it gives us an opportunity to say, here's our stop point. We will evaluate what the rear yard drain program does, where it's applied, how it happens, what kind of funding is appropriate, and then we sort of restart it. Should that be our suggestion. This report asks you to support a breathing space. Let us complete with the people who have already applied and are already in line to participate, cause a clear break so that, as we did with the sidewalk funding program, gives us an opportunity to say everyone from this point forward will fall under whatever criteria the committee and council develop. So as much as I would love to discuss the merits of the program, I don't believe that that's what the intent of this report is about. Thank you.
Alderman York.
Thank you. I'm excited about the opportunity to begin substantive discussion on the policy. I'd like to set aside the politics here and get to the policy refinement. After discussion with the city engineer today and committee chairman, I'm excited about its timely review. Thank you.
Alderman Levin.
I'm wondering, because there's discussion about the timely review, as Alderman York just mentioned, and I'm curious, is there any information in terms of when that review would be complete to get some idea of how long of a suspension we're looking at? Is it 2 months, 6 months, a year?
I think I'd direct that to the chairman. Can you just give us a status with the understanding that the majority report right now is simply a suspension of the city participation. Alderman Kennedy, what's the status of this rear yard drain as it fits into everything else within your committee regarding stormwater mitigation?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regardless of what we talk about, suspension, not suspension, this is one of the most important things we have in front of us. And my belief is that we will have gone through this evaluation and have recommendations for the council, you know, I'm gonna guess by, at the latest, St. Patrick's Day. So by the middle of March, we will be back to you with, you know, what we think is potential modifications to the program, regardless of whether we suspend tonight or not.
Alderman Wagner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may be a question for the committee. How many rear yard drain applications did we process in the last 12 months?
I was actually just going to ask city staff if we had a status of applications.
Great minds think alike.
I think, Corey, if you want to answer that, just to make sure we're correct, please.
Yeah, we have 16 locations that are complete, one deposit that's pending construction, and there's about 12 outstanding.
1-6 or 6-0?
1-6.
Thank you. 16.
Clear?
Clear. Crystal.
Okay.
Question?
I'll go to Alderman Hipskin first.
So, and this is to staff.
Can I get a motion to suspend rules to address city staff? Motion by Kevin York, second by Alderman Plumsky. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're official now.
Thank you.
If you would like to address, and Corey, could you find a microphone so we can get it on the record? Thank you.
Corey, this report up here, the Stormwater Connection Survey, November of 2013, did you do this?
City staff, Stan Glab did that.
Okay.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The survey? Yeah.
Yes.
That was done by Stan Glab. He's one of our civil engineers.
Okay, great. Is there any plan on expanding this out, or?
Not at this time.
Okay. I just see that we're kind of all over the board on this, but I'll address committee if I feel that there's any reason to expand it out. Thank you.
Okay.
Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3 points. First, I was not in attendance at the committee meeting last week. Had I been, I would have supported Alderman Kennedy's now minority report. Secondly, I want to make sure the council is clear that this report does not affect any new home construction. So any new homes that are built, if they need a rear yard drain, the rear yard drain is going in. This does not affect new construction. Lastly, to address, or to, I don't say address, but to tag along to Alderman Hipskin's question about the city survey, I'm the one that asked for it. And the main reason I asked for it is I wanted to get a feel for what other towns around us that were doing. There seems to be a feeling among many in town that, or some, I don't want to say many, some in town that new homes are one of the main culprits of Elmhurst flooding, or the rear yard drain program is a culprit and it's causing all the problems. There's a couple of other reasons, but those are the two main ones. You know, lot size, home size is another one, but that goes back to the new build question. What I think this survey shows is that towns that are around us, and whether you look to the east, to the north, the south, the west, that have similar programs, they flooded during all three major events. The two in 2010, the one in 2013. Towns that don't have direct connects to the sewer, to the storm sewers, flooded. Cities that have rear yard drain programs, flooded. Cities that don't have rear yard drain programs, flooded. Cities that have a lot of new construction, flooded. Cities that don't have a lot of new construction, flooded. What does all that mean? To me, it means this is a Band-Aid. This is something that's going to make us feel good, something that's going to let residents, and we heard from a few of them tonight, you know, that want to point the finger and say, that's why Elmhurst floods, or that's why I flooded. It's going to give them something to say, okay, that's not happening anymore. Until this council, and I don't want to sound like I'm pointing fingers, because I'm pointing thumbs as much as I'm pointing fingers, until this council really starts addressing some of the main stormwater issues, i.e. acquiring property, in potential, flood areas that flood continuously, until we create localized retention, until we work with the schools and the parks to utilize their land, until we potentially change some building construction or existing programs to incent for on-site retention, then we'll address the problem. This, I feel fairly strongly about it one way, but if the council votes the other way and votes to suspend, great. We can say, well, we did something. I won't feel that way. Thank you.
I don't think Alderman Levin has spoken, or has he?
I asked a question already.
Alderman Gutenkopf, and then I'll go to Alderman Levin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's really important to reiterate what the point of this committee referral is. Currently, the city's policy provides a 50-50 cost share to existing homes to help people pay for adding rear yard drains. We believe that until we have clear criteria for who can connect and how they can connect, for what parts of town perhaps have differing status or differing rules for what happens and why and how, that we shouldn't be using taxpayer dollars to help pay for this. This report simply suspends using taxpayer money to help pay for rear yard drains until the committee evaluates the program and has an opportunity to establish criteria. All we're doing, this has nothing to do with this big document that you have in front of you. Just put that away, put it in your file until we start talking about what the actual criteria are. All we're doing is asking your indulgence to stop using city money to pay for the rear yard drain program until we figure out exactly how, when, where we're going to do it, and how much money we should be devoting to that. There are 12 people who have begun the process, additional few whose applications are in, and 16 have been completed. They're not going to be affected by this. Anybody who comes along from tomorrow, when or the next time the council meets and approves this as an ordinance, everybody who applies after that will have to wait. They won't get any city money. They won't get $1,000 to put a rear yard drain in. That's all this is about. So I ask your indulgence, give this committee and the council an opportunity to come up with criteria. We're not discussing the merits, we're not discussing the contribution of the water into the stormwater system at this point. We're just suspending spending our taxpayer money to build rear yard drains until we have criteria. Thank you.
Alderman Levin.
Two questions. One is, I heard that this does not affect new construction, but then I heard one application is pending construction. So I just want to clarify what that one application.
Construction of the rear yard drain itself.
All right, and then that ties in the second one, because I heard something different from Alderman Gutenkopf's statement. So the people who've applied already will get the funding?
Yes, they're grandfathered in, according to the intent of the referral.
Yes.
So this would just suspend new applicants.
If they elect to do it.
If they elect to do it. In fact, all it does is suspend funding. Anybody can, the program would still exist. The ability to connect would still exist without city funding, if the proper permits are applied for.
All right. So it'd be, if we pass it and it goes to ordinance the next meeting or whatever, then it will be for 3 months, anyone who might have applied in that 3-month period till the committee comes up with a policy.
I think the people who already have applications in will follow the normal trail. Anybody who wants to apply in the next 3 months will be told, you're on hold until about St. Patrick's Day.
Well, I don't think it, as Alderman Healy said, I don't think it really matters too much one way or the other, because it's probably not a big number of people and it's not going to have a lot of impact, but I understand the committee's the majority report's desire.
Alderman Bram, did you have a comment?
Mr. Mayor, you covered, well, my colleagues covered most of the points I was going to make. Yes, it still allows for individuals, homeowners, to connect to the city sewers if they so choose. Just the city of Elmhurst doesn't participate in that funding at all. And I thought there was another point I wanted to make, but I can't recall now. But I think that really what it does is it sends a message. It sends a message to the residents of Elmhurst. Yes, we heard your concerns. Yes, we as a council are saying we're not sure if the program as it is the right program for the whole community. It might not impact one single person. If not one additional person walks in with application in hand for this program, it didn't help or it didn't remove any potential stormwater from the system. But I will tell you what it does. It sends a large message to the community saying the council's just not sure. So why continue a program that may be flawed, may be appropriate, or may need some changes? That's the message I think we as a body, elected body, should send to the residents. It is essential for us to say, we understand where you're coming from and we're doing our due diligence, but why continue with a program that might need some changes?
Very good. And any other comments? Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few responses. A lot of the arguments that we're hearing, or maybe not arguments, but the reasoning for the overhead, or excuse me, to support this, we heard during the conversation of overhead sewers. Almost the exact same referral was made to suspend the overhead sewer program because we weren't sure, and let's look into it. And the overhead sewer program, I believe, was about 13 to 15 years old when we discussed it. And ultimately, the consultants came back and said, do the program. We're still doing the program. It remains good policy. This program, one of the speakers said, for 20 years. I don't know how long it's been. I know it's been a really long time. It's been a good policy for many, 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 many years. In fact, every alderman on this dais, save two, Alderman Deuter and Alderman Honquist, have voted continuously for this program, year after year after year. So I'm hesitant to take what is considered by most to be good policy and just stop it because of indulgences and let's tweak it. I'm fine with maybe tweaking it, but why do we need to stop it now? Why do we need to suspend it? I think it's important to note that several aldermen have benefited from this program, whether it's from new house construction or actually taking part of the 50-50 program. So I look at this and think, if we suspend the program today, and tomorrow somebody says, I want to take advantage of the program. May or may not happen, and I tend to agree with Alderman Levin. It might, we're in the middle of winter, nobody's really thinking about it, but who is signing up for this program? It's people that have issues. It's people that have problems. It's not somebody that says, well, I think I want to put this in just 'cause. They've got problems. And now we're going to say, nope, you got to wait. Either pay for it yourself, 100%, while we figure it out, or wait till we figure it out and then maybe we'll do it. When hundreds of residents have taken advantage of this program. I'm leery to just say, let's stop until we see something else, when the impact on that next resident, whether it's tomorrow or 3 months from now, and city staff has to say, sorry, we're not doing it. I'm not going to support it for that reason.
Alderman Deuter.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it seems to me there's general agreement that this is a policy that has a program that has some role in our stormwater management. And I also think there's some general agreement that this is a program that should have some policies and criteria attached to it so that we're using it strategically and we're not inadvertently making the problem worse that we're putting a lot of resources into trying to solve. I think this referral is a fairly benign issue. I think it's just something that just makes sense. We're not exactly sure where this program's headed. To me, I think it makes sense just to temporarily suspend new people coming in, to give them the expectation that they're going to be served in a certain way. We're just temporarily stopping that and until like everyone else has said, we have a chance to look at this and then we pick the program back up. I think the program has a role. I think rear yard drains will have a role. And I don't think a vote for this means we should not be supporting rear yard drains.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Alderman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In our discussions, I have one fundamental issue with the stance that Alderman Bram and Gutenkopf are taking, and that is, the fact is that anyone can go tomorrow, if we were to suspend this, and put in a rear yard drain. And they could do that in a way that could potentially be a detriment to themselves, could be a detriment to their neighbors, could be a detriment to us as a city. And what the rear yard drain program allows us is the ability, based on the fact that we can contribute up to $1,000, the ability for us to look over their shoulder and make sure that the design that they're looking at from a rear yard drain makes sense to the homeowner, to the neighbors, and to the city at large. And so, again, I go back to the main point. If somebody wants to go put a rear yard drain in tomorrow because this is suspended, all I got to do is find a plumber, go in and get a permit, which basically is a piece of paper, and they just go. And I don't think that it makes sense for us to suspend a program with the potential negative of that occurring for what's probably no more than a handful of residents over the next couple of months. It makes no sense to me. I think our efforts should be spent in reviewing the program in its merits and making improvements, leave the program as it is today, and go from there. With that, I'd like to make a motion to substitute, thank you, the minority, what do you know what I wanted? Minority report.
Substitute the majority report for the majority report.
Yes.
A motion to substitute the minority report for the majority report. Clerk Spencer, do you have that?
Yes, sir.
I'll entertain a second. Alderman Healy. That motion takes precedent. We have a motion to substitute the minority report for the majority report. Additional conversation. Alderman Mulliner.
I just want to be...
Point of order.
Yes.
This is only on whether we should adopt now the substitute majority report.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the prevailing motion right now is the substitution. There is some leeway in terms of how people are going to reach that decision. Alderman Levin.
Pardon me? If I got the floor, is it?
Well, I'm just answering your point of order.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Your point of order, which is, yes, we are discussing the substitution. However, there is leeway because there's going to be, I'm sure, discussion as to why people would want to discuss one over the other or support one over the other. Alderman Mulliner.
I just want to make sure that I have some clarification on one point that was made just a minute ago. I'm assuming that when a permit comes forward to put in a rear yard drain, that goes through the appropriate channels in the building department, whether or not we're funding it or not. Is that correct?
Yes. Alderman Levin, then I'll go to Alderman Gutenkopf.
This minority report is different than other ones we've had because essentially it's the same issue. Usually, are we going to extend a contract for 6 months or 12? So it seems like, I don't know whether we really need a minority report, because if we vote on the majority report, it passes, and if we don't, then the minority report gets its way. So we're going to do 2 votes really for no purpose.
Appreciate the opinion, Alderman Levin. Alderman Gutenkopf.
I don't think we should substitute the minority for the majority report for Alderman Levin's point and Alderman Mullner's point. Alderman Kennedy's comment about the city's ability to evaluate the rear yard drains is erroneous. The city evaluates the applications whether or not we pay for it. Not everyone who applies for a permit to install a rear yard drain applies for funding. If a person applies for funding, they get no deeper evaluation than somebody who's applying to install it. All they're doing is asking for us to pay for it. All we're doing is saying we want to stop paying for it until we have criteria. This isn't about the criteria, this isn't about the design, this isn't about the application. We just don't want to pay for it for a period of time until we really have some good criteria. This is really simple, and as Alderman Deuter stated, quite benign. I don't think it requires a minority report substitution. Thank you.
Just a reminder to the council, I would ask that you address your comments to the chair and try to keep personal direction out of it when it comes to items of this nature. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be brief. I've heard the word benign used twice now. It's benign until you're the next one that applies. The majority report says, too bad. The minority report says, we will fund it.
Any other comments? Alderman Dunn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think one of the underlying thrusts of the minority report is that there is some concern, there's some negativity with the rear yard drain program. And with any program, there are potential drawbacks. I think overall, it's a very positive program. And as was hit on earlier tonight, the cost of these projects are, from what I understand, $3,000-$4,000. Someone would get a reimbursement for $1,000 of that max. So they're really not, there's minimal incentive to put one of these in unless you really, really needed it. And generally the flooding, the localized flooding that might occur is not as a result of one lot. It's generally localized for several lots. And as Alderman Healy mentioned and several other aldermen, these people potentially have major problems going on, not just on their lot, but as a result of their neighbors. And I can bring up two cases in the second ward. We have some residents, and Alderman Leader is aware of these also. We have some residents on Larch Street who are very concerned that a neighbor did not put a rear yard drain in when they undertook a construction project that has adversely affected the flooding in their in several neighbors' backyards. And then also on Fay Street, we have some major backyard flooding problems that are potentially getting into homes. And those areas are ripe for this type of program, and I don't think it's appropriate and correct to stop the program at this point. The fact that we have 12 proposals that are on the list right now, and we're doing about 16 a year, you can do the math on that. Probably will be mostly through the year before those are installed. And according to the Chairman Kennedy, this will be vetted and evaluated, and we'll have a ripe new policy in advance of that. So I would support the minority report, which is basically staying with the status quo and leaving the program in place. Thanks.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not happy with the status quo, to quote Alderman Dunn's comments. I think that's why the majority report supersedes the minority report. I do want to clarify, because us on the dais definitely understands what is meant when we say rear yard drain program, but the rear yard drain program is not.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. According to the municipal code, no city council members are allowed to have private discourse when an alderman is speaking, and Alderman Bram is speaking, and there are two council members having a private
Alderman
conversation.
Gutenkopf noted. I'd ask the audience to refrain. Please respect the other aldermen when they are speaking on the dais. Thank you. Alderman Bram, please continue.
I wish I had a rewind button. The rear yard drain program not only is for literally a drain in your backyard, but it also includes downspouts directly connected to the sewer and sump pumps directly connected to the sewer. So that's just a point of clarification for any residents that might be following this discussion. The main point I want to talk about in the minority report, I believe, yes, the minority report says it. The rear yard drain program was created to address drainage problems / disputes created by sump pump discharges and nuisance flooding in low-lying areas on residential lots. And I think one of the residents spoke this evening. I think it's appropriate to suspend a program that is, its main reason for creation is for nuisance flooding or possible algae creation due to, you know, the discharge from sump pumps, et cetera. I'm not saying there's no merits, I don't want to touch on that, but the minority report itself is arguing against itself by saying that the main purpose is for nuisance flooding. So what's the big deal about suspending it? When I discuss this with friends, I think this is a no-brainer. This is probably should have been I think, the easiest discussion that we've had in recent months about any issue. Suspending it is not going to harm anything. Any resident could continue on. Well, as long as they come to City Hall for a permit, the same evaluation will take place. The only difference is we're not accepting applications if the majority moves forward, and we're not providing any funding. Thank you.
I was going to sum up, but it doesn't look like I need to. Alderman Wagner's your hand up? Okay. Seeing no other comments, I just want to remind council that this is a substitution following Robert's rules. We will actually be taking 2 votes. And I discussed this with City Attorney Storino before the meeting. We will have a vote on the motion before us, which is to substitute the minority for the majority. If that motion passes, we will then vote on the minority report, additional discussion if necessary. If the motion fails, we will go back to the underlying majority report, additional discussion or vote. That having been said, Clerk Spencer, I would ask that you call the roll on the motion to substitute the minority report for the majority report.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Honquist.
No.
Mulliner.
No.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Deuter.
No.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polemski.
No.
Bram.
No.
Hipskin.
No.
York.
No.
Levin.
No.
Five ayes. 9 nays.
5 ayes, 9 nays. That motion fails. On to the underlying motion for the originally submitted majority report. Any additional comments or conversation? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll on the majority report.
Bram.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
No.
Leader.
No.
Polemski.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
No.
Honquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
No.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
No.
9 ayes, 5 nays.
9 ayes, 5 nays. That motion carries. On to agenda item number 8, reports and recommendations from appointed and elected officials. 2 quick items for me. One is I want to congratulate city staff, Marilyn Gaston, and everyone involved. We were notified recently that our city bond rating was upgraded to AAA. That puts us in the top 10% in the state of Illinois. It has too many positives to list, but it is a testament to the strong commitment our city staff has and the city council has to fiscal responsibility. So thank you very much to staff and city council for that. Report number 2, Alderman Leader mentioned a blood drive on the 28th, and I fear that many of you may be out of town, and if that is the case, don't fret, because Elmhurst Toyota, along with Integrative Family Health Associates, will be doing a blood drive as well on the 18th. That's at Kurt Cheeley's Elmhurst Toyota on the 18th from 12 to 4 p.m. to help a whole host of people, including one of our very good friends, Connie Weatherford. And that, again, the 18th at Elmhurst Toyota. And that's my report. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. I do have a few updates. Continuing from something that Alderman Brand brought up earlier, the TIF, the North York TIF meetings. This morning, we did have one at City Hall for the business side of that. And
Not TIF, right?
North York.
North York Planning.
the North York Plan. It was for the North York Plan, which is associated with the TIF. I'm sorry. And there were approximately 24 business owners or property owners who attended, and we felt that was a good turnout with some very good conversation. Further, at council direction, we are meeting with the Han Street developers this week to further clarify their proposals, just to give the council an update. And then lastly, the Public Works Director recruitment update. We closed that recruitment on Friday. We received 70 applications. The HR department is conducting that search, so they're paring that down to something more manageable as we determine that, and then we'll continue on in the process from there.
Is it our hope we're going to have the information requested by the city council to have further Han discussion on the 6th?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we anticipate.
Okay. So on the 6th, which is also a council meeting night, we'll have committee of the whole following to continue our Han Street discussion.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Any other reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 9, ordinance. Clerk Spencer, if you could please read the ordinance, 9.1.
Okay, this is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $8,950,000 general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2014A of the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois, for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding general obligation bonds and paying expenses incident thereto, and providing for a levy and collection of a direct annual tax sufficient for the payment of the principal of and interest on said bonds.
I ask for a motion to approve. Alderman York, a second by Alderman Dunn. Alderman York, you care to put that in layman's terms for us?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would ask the council to suspend the rules to let Kevin McCanna, president of Spirit Financial, who facilitated the refunding today, enlighten the council.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Alderman Mulliner to suspend the rules to allow a city vendor to fill us in on the details. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. Sir, you have the microphone.
Good evening. We took bids this morning on the Series 2014 bonds, which were to refinance some Series 2004 and Series 2005 bonds. And I think really in part because of your AAA status, we received 8 bids from 8 firms. There were 45 bids altogether. There's a packet on your desk listing the bids. The best bidder was William Blair and Company at 2.06%. This was, and the second best bidder is also 2.06%. They differ by 0.005%. It worked very, very well. It was a very tight bidding. The result is that there was a savings to the city taxpayers of $861,000 by lowering the interest rate from approximately 4% to 2.06%. The AAA helped on this bond issue. It probably saved you about $30,000 to $40,000 because the bond issue is so short. Now, if you were to put that into perspective for doing, say, a $10 million 20-year issue, you'd be saving around $100,000 or $150,000 from having that higher grade, which really is a wonderful rating to get. There's, I think there's about 31 or 32 AAA communities in the state of Illinois. So it's a very august group. The bond issue was sold at to William Blair. They offered a premium, so the result was that the bond issue size was reduced from the $8,950,000, as the clerk read, to $8,770,000. And again, that resulted in $861,000 worth of savings, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Fantastic. Any questions or comments?
Yes,
Alderman Hipskin.
I have a question. So our recent upgrade from AA+ to AAA, how many, what is the criteria that they look at for that from what you've seen in the marketplace? And in the Chicagoland area, what other towns that you know of that are AAA?
There's a report, the S&P report is attached to our packet. So it talks about the very strong management, the very strong liquidity of the city, the budgetary flexibility. They're really getting very much into numbers. The S&P has changed its focus a little bit to really strengthen a view of how well you can manage your budget, how well you actually get to a balanced financial operations. So in terms of other communities, other than, Naperville and Hinsdale, you also have, a lot of them are on the North Shore. So you have the Winnetkas, the Wilmettes, the Highland Parks. The county of DuPage certainly is also AAA. And there's as I said, there's about 30 of them. But that I think Wheaton also. I think that gives you it's the higher socioeconomic home rule units, except for Hinsdale isn't home rule, and when they got their AAA, they weren't home rule, but primarily home rule and higher socioeconomics are what's really important in getting the AAA.
Very good. Alderman Levin.
Well, to put that answer in perspective, there are 126 municipalities in Cook County alone, and another, 50 or 60, whatever it is, in DuPage, and then you go to Will and Kane. I mean, I think it's a credit to our financial staff. Basically, it's like remortgaging your home and getting a great savings. So to the entire city staff, I think you've done a great job on this.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's wonderful that we were able to get such a very favorable rate on these bonds. I do think, in light of comments that were made during the public forum, it's really important to note that this is a bond issue to refund existing debt and not, as I understand it, new debt. So what we've done is we've taken existing debt, reissued bonds at a lower interest rate, thereby saving us a lot of money on paying off that debt. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Thank you, sir. Seeing no other comments or questions, I will ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
York.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Conquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
14 ayes, 0 nays.
14 ayes, 0 nays. That motion passes. On to agenda item 9.2. Clerk Spencer, if you could please read the ordinance.
A budget and appropriation ordinance for the City of Elmhurst for fiscal year beginning January 1, 2014, and ending on December 31, 2014.
I'd ask for a motion to approve this first calendar year budget. Alderman York, second by Alderman Mulliner. Any comments or questions? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few comments. What's the role of a city's budget? A budget is a financial plan for a city's future. In detail, it outlines spending for the upcoming fiscal year. In a broad way, it proposes city expenditures for the next 5 years. Why do we budget? We, the City of Elmhurst, create a budget in order to manage our finances properly. We must balance spending, expenditures, with income, revenues. The money our city collects, our revenues, comes from several sources, including property and other taxes, fees, grants. We use these funds to support our general obligations, capital projects, and occasionally we grant funds to outside groups. Those particular funds, grants, come from our community grant program. Annually, we budget $90,000 for this program. In 2013, we funded 11 local groups in dollar amounts that ranged from $1,350 to $21,500. Grants to these groups help them provide programs and services to Elmhurst residents. How does our city decide the appropriate amount to budget for these grants? Until 2 weeks ago, I might have said, our process involves advice from city staff, informing the Finance and Council Affairs Committee's discussion of this program. Staff might suggest funding levels, and the committee might make recommendation to the council as a whole. Do we have an alternative process? Why, yes we do. During the annual budget evaluation, council members often highlight budget lines for further discussion. The alderman might request additional supporting documentation, and then that documentation shared with the entire council. This enables the council to have an informed discussion of the topic and for people to vote based on substantive information. But what happened this year? $40,000 was added to the community grant program. Did this additional funding get discussed at a committee meeting? No. Did the Finance and Council Affairs Committee make a recommendation to the council as a whole? No. During our detailed budget review, did the appropriate budget line get highlighted for further discussion? No. Instead, this careful process was circumvented. $40,000 was inserted into the community grant program at the 11th hour. Was the council provided with detailed supporting documentation? No. Indeed, we received no documentation at all. Who applies for funding each year? What percentage of their request is honored? Who applies for funding gets turned down for lack of funds? How do recipients use these funds? We have absolutely no way of knowing. And yet, sufficient votes were mustered to get this passed. How did these aldermen know what they were voting for? What informed their decision-making? Who will receive these additional funds? What is the plan for their distribution? Again, we have no information on which to base our decision. Let us remember the committee approval for these community grants rests with the Finance and Council Affairs Committee. Why is this problematic? For so many reasons. This is not magic money. It doesn't appear from the sky. This money comes from our citizens. They pay property taxes and sales taxes and fees so we can provide them with services. City services. We're taking this $40,000 from our fund balance, which is recovering because we've cut city spending and looked for additional revenue sources. The economy is recovering and sales tax revenues are increasing. What should we do with this recovery? The responsible answer is to look at what we cut from the budget in the past few years. The responsible thing is to look at what departments we've cut and assess how these cuts have impacted operations. Those departments suffering from cuts should be the first things we fund, not new programs, not giveaway programs. We should fund our own operations first. Why am I so concerned with an apparently small dollar amount? $40,000 is a tiny fraction of the city's budget overall. But this is not about the total number of dollars. This is about process. 11th hour budget additions circumvent the city's own budgeting process, and as a result, circumvent the democratic process, because no public information is available to citizens and voters before the meeting. Elmhurst taxpayers thus have no opportunity to contact elected representatives in advance. They can't tell us if they're for or against a project. They can't come to a meeting prepared to speak. They can't tell us if we should be spending their money on internal operations or granting their money to others. So I ask again, why do we budget? What is the point of this planning document if elected officials ignore their jobs, circumvent the public by ignoring established policies and procedures, and behave as if revenue fell from the sky? I'm not supporting this budget because I can't support the council's budgeting behavior. Thank you.
Any other comments? Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to fully support the budget. I think it's a good budget. We worked hard on it. I am not addressing these comments to Alderman Gutenkopf. However, I do feel very compelled to make sure, for the record, it is pointed out that at that very same meeting where the motion to add $40,000 to community grants was made, seconded, and approved by the council, at that very same meeting, Alderman Gutenkopf made a motion to add $40,000 to the museum budget. She made the motion.
Alderman Healy, let's just keep it as a motion was made to add.
Thank you for the correction. A motion was made to add $40,000 to the museum budget. It was seconded, and it was defeated. So any comments about doing our jobs, democracy, etc., ring a little hollow. Thank you.
Let's keep civility in mind here. Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. Once again, I'd like to point out that the budget as a spending plan has been identified all along. And just as we do every year, this committee will vet the community grants in their entirety and every single dollar of them as far as recipients are concerned and how much they get. It will be vetted, it will be issued in a report to the City Council, and the City Council at that point in time will have the opportunity to vote on it. It was also noted when the proposal was made that this line item was in fact over twice as high at the height of the economy and had been slashed some 60%. And being a important driver of the economic engine of Elmhurst, that was the basis for the proposed change to the spending plan to be reviewed in the committee for actual disbursement. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Bram.
Thank you. Just really quick, I can't support this budget, and the reason behind it is simple for me. I've already talked about it during the budget discussions at length, as I probably will see some nods of heads up and down on that. But in regards, I feel this budget represents putting community grants above core services that impact my area especially, but other areas of town, being street reconstruction. That motion was made. It was made as a circle back. A referral was made. All due diligence was done, but the greater majority of the council decided that street reconstruction, I guess, isn't a priority and community grants are. So therefore, just the message that this sends, I can't support this budget. $1.8 million was supposedly budgeted for concrete street reconstruction, and $300,000 was spent in 6 years. But we as a council chose community grants above concrete street reconstruction. Lastly, there's been arguments in regards to drawing down our fund balance. I think it's getting late and people are hungry. The policy's been put in place to make sure we do have funds in the rainy day fund, and we're almost at our max capacity there. But this budget represents community grants saying, well, let's take away from that we installed the policy to fund over the past few years. So, and the last item is, I believe, Mr. Mayor and maybe City Attorney, that the budget would need 2/3 votes to be able to pass and move forward. Thank you.
Very good. One moment.
Gee, I'm not, the Alderman will have to help me with that.
I'm unaware of that, but.
On section 207, I believe. Hold on, maybe I'm incorrect. Let me find it again.
Point of order.
I believe I misread, Mr. Mayor. It states, "No modification shall be made to the appropriation or budgeting system for the city of Elmhurst unless such modification shall be by ordinance by a vote of at least 2/3 of the members elected to the city council, including the mayor." So I think it's
We're not doing that here this
referencing
evening.
modification,
Yes.
not the actual budget.
So simple majority will do it. Alderman Palomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank staff and council for working on this budget. We spent a lot of time on it. There are some portions I would like to have seen more funding and other where I would have liked to seen less, but just a question for clarification. If each one of us decided not to approve the budget, what would happen?
Well, we're obligated by law to have a budget passed this year, so I guess we would next decide when we would meet.
Okay.
2 days from now, and
Thank you.
as soon as possible, I would say.
Thanks.
So we're required to have a budget, an approved budget. Any other comments? Alderman Levin.
Well, along the same lines, I think that we have a, what is it, $50 million, $100 million budget, and we're talking about $40,000. There are things that I might not like in the budget, but it would be absolutely irresponsible not to pass a budget. It's one of the most important things we do. We've spent hours and hours going through it. So it's time to get on with it, and we've got a lot of work in it, and I think there's no choice but to support what's a very good budget, whether you disagree with one particular line item or not.
Any other final comments? Seeing none, ask, sorry, Mr. Dunn.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This budget, any budget's going to have its deficiencies. It's an estimation, and I know city staff and the council continues to refine that, and I think we have an excellent budget. We are increasing our working cash fund to our target of $1 million. Where our general fund balance is going to be well within our target. And we're doing a lot of good things this year with stormwater efforts, development efforts, adding some key positions. So the city continues to get better. The services continue to get better. And I'm very optimistic about 2014 and this budget. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
York.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Deuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Ipskin.
No, I'm sorry. Aye.
You okay there, Mr.
Yeah,
Hipskin?
I am.
All right.
Thank you.
Clerk Spencer, please continue.
Computer
Aye.
problem.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Onquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Looks like 12 ayes and 2 nays.
12 ayes, 2 nays. That motion carries. Budget passes. Agenda item number 10, any other business? Seeing no others, I'll ask for motion to adjourn. Alderman York, Second by Alderman Deuter. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned.